Welcome back to LPR's Delivery. First, I want to talk about sugar and salt. Sugar makes food sweet. Salt makes food salty. So we could also say that sugar and salt are what make our food delicious or interesting, not bland. Henry James said that adjectives are the sugar of literature and adverbs the salt. So just like sugar and salt make our food interesting, adjectives and adverbs make our language or our literature interesting. This is also reflected in the criteria for the Level 4 operational exam. For a grammar, you need to be able to speak creatively and have well-controlled structures. This includes putting adjectives and adverbs in the right place. Moreover, for vocabulary, we need a range and accuracy sufficient to communicate effectively. So this means that you need to have a fairly large vocabulary, which often includes adjectives and adverbs. So today's lesson is about adjectives and adverbs and how to use them on a basic sense. Let's get started with adjectives. First, look at these three sentences. I saw a great movie last night. What's the adjective? Yeah, it should be great. And what does great describe? Or what does great modify? Modifies movie. So we can see that the adjective here is describing movie, which is a noun. Next sentence, she is beautiful. Yeah, the adjective is beautiful, which describes she, which is the pronoun here. And how about the last one? Controlling aircraft is challenging. What's the adjective? Yeah, challenging. So we see here an ing adjective, and it's describing controlling. It's describing an activity. So as we can see, adjectives can describe nouns, adjectives can describe pronouns, and adjectives can even describe activities, which is like a gerund or the ing form of a verb. Now, let's look at some examples of adjectives and why some people have problems with them. We see this one in Thai, you might say mèo dam. In Spanish, you'd say gato negro. Or in French, chat noir. Or in English, black cat. So why am I talking about this? Well, we see in Thai that the adjective comes after the noun. This is true for Spanish, also true for French, and actually most languages in the world. However, some languages, including English, usually put the adjective before the noun. So be aware of that. Another thing, in Thai you might say mèo dam song tua, or in Spanish dos gatos negros, or in French deux chats noirs. But in English we say two black cats. So why are we talking about this? Just to point out that in some languages we have to change and add an S because when we have the plural noun, we need the plural adjective. However, this is not the case with English. In English, we have cats as plural, but notice we do not say blacks, cats. Now, let's look at some more types of adjectives. This is an aircraft, obviously. So what adjectives could we use to describe this aircraft? Well, we might say it's old, it's big, it's silver, it's a propeller aircraft, it's American, and it's beautiful. Now, if we want to say all of these adjectives in one sentence, how should we arrange them? Well, there is an actual order that we usually go by. So thanks to British Council for this one, we might start with a general opinion, a more specific opinion, size, then shape, then age, then color, then nationality, then material or type. So we can see here, beautiful is an opinion, big is a size, old is the age, silver is the color, American is nationality, and propeller is the material or type. Native speakers learn to do this naturally without learning these rules, but as a non-native speaker and an English learner, you should learn these orders and practice with them. You can find exercises for this online quite easily. Just look up adjective order. Also, notice that when we stack adjectives like this, all before a noun, that we do not usually use and when stacking adjectives. However, let's look at this again. This aircraft is big and old. Notice that here we do use and when stacking adjectives after stative verbs. So the aircraft is big and old. So two adjectives that are both describing aircraft, but we do see it after the verb to be, which is a stative verb. So just as a review, what do we mean by stative verbs? Let's look. We see this coffee here, and we want to think about some adjectives about the coffee. So we might say, this coffee is good, or is nice, is terrible. This coffee looks good, or this coffee looks great. This coffee smells nice, this coffee smells wonderful. This coffee feels warm, or this coffee feels cold. Or this coffee tastes great, or it tastes bitter, or it tastes old. So we see all of these adjectives here. All of them are describing the coffee. But again, we see that they're after stative verbs. These stative verbs can be things like verb to be, or stative verbs like looks, or appears, or seems, or it can be things for our senses like smells, feels, tastes, or sounds. Another example. If you look at this man, what do you think about him? Well, the man is angry or frustrated. The man looks angry or frustrated. The man seems angry or frustrated. Or the man appears angry or frustrated. Again, all of these feelings are also adjectives that describe the man. And again, you see our stative verbs. Another example might be like this one. I sometimes get angry. I sometimes become angry. These are other examples of stative verbs that we can use with adjectives. Now, let's move on to adverbs. Let's look at 3 sentences. The aircraft landed safely. The situation was extremely dangerous. He answered my question very quickly. Now, let's go back and identify the adverbs. Here we see safely is an adverb that describes landed. So we see that adverbs can describe verbs like to land. Here we see extremely. Extremely is an adverb that describes or modifies dangerous. Dangerous is an adjective, so adverbs can modify adjectives. Likewise, very is an adverb that describes quickly. So we see some adverbs can actually modify other adverbs. So again, adverbs can modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. We don't have a lift here. I worked the morning shift yesterday. My friend speaks English well. Now let's look at these 3 sentences and think about adverbs. We don't have a lift here. Which one is the adverb? Here is the adverb. Here describes don't have. In the next sentence, yesterday is the adverb, and it describes worked. In the last sentence, well is the adverb, and it describes speak. Now, why are these adverbs? It's because they give extra information and answer questions. For example, here tells us where. Where don't we have a lift? The answer is here. Yesterday tells us when. When did I work the morning shift? Yesterday. And well tells us how. How does my friend speak English? My friend speaks English well. When we have these types of adverbs that describe where, when, and how something happens, we usually put them at the end of the sentence. So you might think that we need to put the adverb next to the verb, right? That would make sense, right? However, that's not the case in English. When we have these types of adverbs that tell us where, when, or how, we need to put them at the end of the sentence. We cannot separate the verb from the object. So this is not allowed in English. However, sometimes with words like yesterday, you might be able to put it at the beginning of the sentence. Yesterday, I worked the morning shift. This is possible in some cases, so just be aware of that. So now you know how to use the sugar and salt of the language and the basic way to use adjectives and adverbs to make your speaking more beautiful and more interesting. And in the next lesson, we'll see more about adverbs and frequency expressions and how to take it to the next level. And that's it for today's lesson on adjectives and adverbs. And we'll see you next time on LPRs Delivery. ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ